And greetings. Welcome back. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and thank you for joining me today. Today is Tuesday. What is today? October the 3rd. Thank you guys for being here with me today. It's good to have you back. It's good to be back. And we are back to do our weekly review of episodes of 10 for the Chairman by Chris Roberts from Cloud Imperium Games. We are doing these shows as a way to go back and take a look at the progress and development of the game Star Citizen and Squadron 42. I've mentioned this in the past, but I open up every week by saying that the reason I'm doing these shows is because after many conversations and seeing posts, I noticed that many people that are part of the Star Citizen community were not around back in the day when Chris was really laying out his vision for this game. And when subscribers and backers of Star Citizen had opportunity to send him questions where he would weekly respond to their inquiry about the development. And it gave us a lot of insight as to what was going on in Chris's mind and the possibilities of what this game could evolve into. Hence, that is why we are doing this as a refresher, as a way to go back and look over the years and see how much has been accomplished, how much still needs to be done, and basically give ourselves our little own progress report, a little report card, I guess you could say, on how CIG is doing with the development of the game. So that's why this is going on. That's why I'm doing this. These videos go back, the ones we're covering now go back to 2014. We're going to be in May of 2014. We're going to do episodes 19 and 20 today. We may squeeze 21 in. It all depends on the time. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. So let's go ahead and get things started. And once again, if you're here, thank you. I appreciate you being here and supporting me with your presence. And let's just get ready to jump on into it. We're going to pick off with episode 19. This is from May 12th of 2014 for 10 from the Chairman. Here we go. Oops, that's the wrong screen. My mouse is in the wrong place. Here we go.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those that you don't know, this is where I take 10 questions submitted by our subscribers and answer them to the best of my abilities. Subscribers are the subset of our backer community that put a little extra money every month towards our ability to do enhanced content for the whole community. So things like the Jump Point magazine, things like 10 for the Chairman, Wingman's Hangar, a bunch of the other stuff that we do is all sort of financed by the generous contributions of subscribers. So thank you very much. This is where I'll answer the questions. I just wanted to also say thank you very much to Track and Peacemaker, who are both fire captains down in Orange County, and they stopped by. I got a nice cap and a couple of challenge coins. So they stopped by to have lunch with Ben today and said hi. Very nice. Very nice folks and backers, so it's always really nice to actually meet everyone that's helping make this happen. So anyway, so thank you very much for that. All right, so let's get to the 10 questions. So the first question comes from Apple Crow Scythe Racer. So I don't know if he's a Scythe Racer or Apple Crow are two people at the same time, but asks, will players or orgs be able to run their own medical facilities? Could we perhaps outfit a larger ship like a Caterpillar Starfarer Idris as a mobile hospital? Could we offer those services to other players? So yeah, the short answer is yes. I'm not so sure whether necessarily a Caterpillar would be able to have it or a Starfarer, but we're already building in an infirmary in the Idris, and there'll be some other ships that will have medical facilities on them. And I think I'd mentioned before in one of the previous 10 for the Chairman, one of the sort of game mechanics we thought is that when you're boarding, if you get wounded or injured, especially you take a critical hit, if your friends manage to drag you back and get you patched up, you won't actually lose that life. So it'll take you a bit of time before you fully bleed out and like lose a life or die. And so one of the game mechanics will be sort of, taking your wounded comrades back and getting them fixed up. And so if you, have either successfully captured a ship with a boarding action or unsuccessfully, and you got some shot up teammates or you're shot up yourself, then you have to go and find some medical facilities in a certain period of time before you will bleed out and lose a life. And so that could either happen aboard a ship or depending if you're a pirate, maybe sort of some dodgy back alley doctor. But we thought it would be a pretty interesting mechanic. So the answer to that question is yes. Next question comes.
Okay. Again, this is why we do this. We go through this to see where we are, what we have, what we don't have. And it's interesting to see how this particular mechanic evolved. The person just basically asked whether or not players will be able to operate as a medical facility or be able to help people who are injured. And he says yes. Chris talks about the fact that if you got injured, your people could take you back before you bled out, which we do have in the game. But also, I think you guys know that bleeding out is not necessarily something that you can continually do and expect to survive. So they've expanded that mechanic to that you can bleed out, but if you use a red med pen, then that will stop the bleeding. You'll still be injured, but it does stop that from happening, and then you can go and get additional medical care. So, and we do know at this time the Endeavor was not out, the Apollo, there was no conversations about that, the Cuddy Red wasn't out. So eventually they did end up, instead of at this point, this person is thinking maybe we could take a Caterpillar or a Starfarer and there'll be either a medical version or we can convert it. But he says no, but we end up having dedicated medical ships. So this is prior to all those ships being in game. Keep that in mind. But it's good to see that, again, part of the being about casting vision is not always all the little details, but it is a general path of what it is that you want to see done. What's the road that you would like to see? And a lot of stuff has to get fleshed out. Some stuff, obviously, ideas get tossed. Some ideas grow and spur further. There's a proof of concept point, and then let's say, what else can we do? Or we can do this, and now we think we can do that. So, it's all part of this process of hearing Chris unveil things. Captain Jones, hey, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Good to see you.
From Raven, who asks, if someone is wanted dead or alive and you blow up their ship and they end up in the hospital with a cyborg arm, per the death of a spaceman mechanic, they still had lives left, do you get the dead bounty or not? Do you have to capture the mark most of the time, perhaps gravely wounded, unless you get lucky enough that they're already mostly cyborg and croak after you vape them one more time? Yeah, I mean, basically the dead or alive thing, if you have a bounty against someone, if you manage to kill them, essentially capture them and take one of their lives, you'll get the bounty. So it doesn't mean that they have to have their final life and it passes on to the next of kin per the death of the spaceman. It's basically, I've gone after you, I blow your ship up and it blows up with you, even though that may just knock as one of your lives and you may come back with a cyborg arm or something, that will definitely count as a bounty for you. Okay, next question comes from...
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I am curious to see, we talked about bounty hunting and how that's going to form up, and they've kind of given us some insight into that, that bounty hunting can be about killing the person if that's the bounty. But I'm also looking at bounty hunting as being about like capturing, right? I mean, to me, there could be like a really, I wonder. A lot of times I'm thinking about like the old West, right? People used to say, 10,000 alive, 20,000 dead, right? Because you just wanted the person dead. And I really wonder if it's going to be, if that number might flip. In other words, like killing people is easy. Capturing them is more difficult. Am I making sense, Captain Jones? Killing people is easy. Capturing people may be more difficult. And I'm wondering if whether or not the numbers may flip, where it'll be like, yeah, if you kill him, I'll give you 10,000. But if you can capture this guy and put his butt in prison and make him really feel it, so he just doesn't come back, you know what I mean? You get a cap, yeah, so he hasn't, now this Joker's got to go to prison. He might get shanked in prison, you know what I mean? I'm wondering whether or not that's going to be a flip of the numbers. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Arrgh. I'm guessing it's maybe a pirate, who asks, if a multi-crewed ship, such as the Constellation, is attacked unexpectedly and crew members are in a section which is breached, will they expire, assuming they're not an EVA suit 24/7? So it sort of depends if the section is breached and there isn't a bulkhead that's keeping like the atmosphere in, and you don't have an EVA suit in, then yes, you have a small amount of time to get a suit or get to safety before you will die from asphyxiation. And that will actually be potentially part of the gameplay, because we'll also let players change things like gravity zones on ships and space areas of ships for decompression as defensive techniques or offensive techniques. Okay, next question.
Okay. I hate that I'm stopping so much, but I got to talk a little bit this time around. See, they're alive. Alive should be a greater payout, hopefully. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. This is a mechanic that I can't wait for us to get in the game. Now, I don't know how they're going to do this. Boy, oh boy. And I do know that ships do have these zones in them where there's air, right? Because you guys have been on a ship before where you've gone certain part of the ship and there's no air, right? No oxygen. I can't wait till we start taking damage and the hull gets breached. You know, because we've seen ships where it's damaged on the outside, but there's no internal nothing. I mean, you got sparks and stuff and maybe some smoke. But I would love for it to be like when it flashes red or something, it tells you like, not only do you have a fire, well, if you have a fire, there's oxygen, right? That's me. That's the clue. If you see fire, there's oxygen in the area. But if you see no fire, there's no oxygen. That would be kind of cool, you know? And if you don't have a suit on, you either got to run to an area where there is one. Hopefully there's one in the section where you're at. But if not, I mean, some of you have done this before, right? You exit the ship without a helmet on a moon with no oxygen, and you sprint, you know, to get to the building. That's what I would love to see happen. That if you decide to run through there, you got to sprint through it, and hopefully you'll make it, right? Hopefully the doors will open within the time frame needed. Hopefully the door's not jammed on the other side. You know, you run through there holding your breath, and then you get to the other side, and then the door doesn't open. Oh my God, that would be a trip. So yeah, it would be really cool to see when breaching actually takes place and it starts to impact the atmosphere on a ship. I would love that.
Comes from Domcat, with a capital O in the Dom, by the way, who asks, "Hi Chris, tablet support was unlocked as a stretch goal many millions ago, but you never mentioned how you think they will work. Have you and the team had any thought on what the use of tablets will be, such as an extra screen or a way to mod your ship in and out of Star Citizen and access stores, or maybe a real-world mobi-glass, for example? Also, any ETA on the release of the app?" So we were thinking in terms of the tablet support would be more an app that you could log into your account, manage your inventory, sort of look for work, sort out future missions with friends, sort of organize your kind of like business dealings or personal stuff, but not so much obviously fly, because right now tablets aren't going to be close to as powerful that we need to do Star Citizen, but sort of more like a sort of personal management. So I mean, I guess you could consider it like your sort of mobi-glass version, other than the fact that it won't be augmented reality the same way the mobi-glass is in the game. And we have talked about having like a sort of second screen support, like you're in a ship, potentially some of the screen stuff can go from the cockpit onto a second screen, but we haven't really done much with that, and that's certainly, I don't think that's going to be a primary thing at the beginning. It'll probably be something that we can add on later on, because we've got a lot of other things to do. So look for the app to be mostly about managing your possessions, jobs, missions, friends, setting yourself up for when you get on your desktop and start to fly around in space. Okay, next question.
Okay. Last week, I think on our show, was it Sunday? I don't know if it was on the Sunday Soul Citizens or what, but I thought Go Mob or somebody made that suggestion of talking about a mobile app that, how they would probably do well with one. We know that things are still in development. Some of you always remember we had an authenticator at one point, the RSI authenticator, if you wanted to get into your account. And I thought that was kind of like the initiation of that idea, that, they were going to start building out from that, because obviously just something as simple as logging in is always going to be there. So the API and stuff that needed is already done. The next thing that I think would be cool would be to see something like your inventory, right? Your ships, everything that when you go into your hangar, basically just the hangar portion of it, that gives you specs on ships, what ships you have, basically everything that's in your inventory. And I know that's no small task. It makes it make it sound easy. But that would be something that I think would be cool. People would just do it just for the sake of diddling around with it, right? That would be cool. Then we know that they do want to do the incorporation with spectrum and things of that nature. Eventually, so there's real-time communication taking place. But Chris is saying that it's not going to be anything in relation to controlling your ships or managing loadouts or things like that. I don't think it's going to get to that level. What would be interesting though is inventory and news, tying in the website stuff, lore information, so that you can find out about stuff like the Galactopedia, obviously, things like that would need to be in there. And obviously the star map, right? Being able to see the star map, being able to chart out, place things like that where you want to go, that would be so cool. All in time, I know, but boy, to have those things now would be exciting. At least to me, they'd be exciting to have. I'd be monkeying around with it all the time, probably.
Question comes from Rabbit, who asks, as a leader of the mercenary company Rabbit's Raiders, it is my responsibility to make sure that my squadron is combat ready. One thing that would certainly help us practice would be multiplayer mission editor for the simulator PvP arena. Does CIG currently have plans to create a user-friendly mission editor to create custom scenarios? So that's a great question. Not off the bat on the dogfighting module, but I wouldn't rule that out later on down the road in terms of allowing people to build their own sort of encounter maps for Arena Commander, because that would be fairly easy to do. I mean, the only caveat is that the modding side of the tools require a lot more sort of polish than sort of our internal dev tools. And so in terms of those getting in people's hands, our current schedule is get the game out and then sort of get polished sort of modding tools out after the game. Because we make it work to a certain level, but then you got to make the interface better and a whole level of robustness. So I'm not so sure it would be easy to do that sort of ahead of that sort of schedule, just because we would be taking a significant chunk of basically the editor that you use in CryEngine and have it modified heavily for what we're doing. But I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. So especially if we build some kind of like mission builder, like sort of separate app, that could possibly happen. So we'll think about that. It's a good suggestion. Can't promise it right away, but long term that would definitely be a goal.
Okay, mission editor. For orgs being able to do mission editor. Okay, this is where I struggle, guys. This is where I struggle. Arena Commander is structured in such a way that it allows you to practice doing combat, right? You can do Vandal Swarm, Pirate Swarm, and now they've expanded it. This is 9 years later, and they've expanded it to another level of what it was back in the day. He's wearing an Arena Commander shirt, by the way. But this person's saying, well, as an org leader, this is my job to get these people trained and prepped and blah, 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 which I get. What I don't get about gamers, particularly with Star Citizen, is this desire to have CIG create every freaking scenario for the game when it is still a sandbox and we can go in and create our own scenarios. All you need is the people and the willingness to do it. This idea of always feeling like you need to have something that you push the Moby glass and pull it up and here's what we're supposed to do. I'm just not feeling it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I get it in games, but what I'm not feeling is the fact that we've come to rely on that when we have the tools in the world. I mean, we've got the guns, the ships, the sand, the snow, the bunkers. I mean, we can create our own scenarios if we want to train our people in practice. You can do that. So I get a little wondering sometimes, like, what do we? But you're holding back. Why can't you contact another org leader and say, hey, let's do some war games. Let's plan out some stuff. Let's have some friendly stuff going on. That's all it takes. You don't have to wait on Cloud Imperium to come up with the plan, at least in my opinion. So that's my tirade on that.
Okay, next question comes from Cam, who asks, will the various systems have to obey the laws of orbital mechanics? That is, will a solar system's components be orbiting its sun? Therefore, if I leave a planet to do something off-planet, the planet will be somewhere else in orbit when I want to return. That's a good question. We've actually gone back and forth on that one. So originally we were thinking, well, it's cool, but maybe it's too much of a pain. Like, for instance, to always have to sort of navigate back, is the planet still there or not? So initially we're leaning against it, although we're now moving to a full double precision system map, which means that we can essentially cover millions and millions of kilometers. And in that system, each sort of entity, whether it's a planet, the sun, asteroid field, will have their own sort of location. And we probably will be able to, and if we want, to orbit them around and then you would sort of travel locally. But we haven't made a full decision whether the planets are static or they're actually, running on some orbital, path. Although, doing the orbital thing may be pretty cool. So, that's definitely something we're considering. Before we were thinking we wouldn't do it when we had a more fixed system map set up, but now our system map is sort of on one fixed scale and has the ability to be more dynamic. We're sort of reconsidering that. So no decision made yet, but potentially it could happen. Okay, so Wolfhelm asks,
hey BBG, good to see you too. Yeah, Red, I'm recovering from the weekend between the birthday and the 24 or 12 hour live stream. This is my first poke into humanity again, so I'm hanging in there. We got to get together though and make those arrangements I talked about, so I haven't forgotten about you. I hope things are on the decline now, so I've got more time to be able to hook up with you. Let's go back and talk about that a little bit. The orbital mechanics stuff. This came up back in the day. Some of you guys will remember this question about whether or not planets will actually be able to orbit the stars and the moons and everything else. And we know right now that there is planetary rotation, which I think is cool. But obviously you guys know that when orbital mechanics come in, it introduces another level of complexity for navigation, right? Basically everything's moving. All the different satellites are moving. When I say satellites, I'm talking about planets and moons. They're all moving. And so something when you're, jumping from R-Corp to Microtech is a straight line right now. If Microtech starts orbiting Stanton, the sun, now you've got a whole nother aspect of computing and navigation to be able to get to that location. And you guys know that, right? You find a space, you calculate where the planet will be by the time you get there. Now, that's not that that's impossible to do, but it does introduce another factor. Now, that's probably not too difficult to do. But what I think would be something is CIG has talked about us being able to orbit planets and moons with our ships. For example, you may take a ship like you're in, let's use your Carrack. And you've got your Carrack and you say, I want to go down to this planet and check things out. It's a volatile planet. Maybe it's extremely windy. Taking the Carrack down there may not be a good thing to do. Let's jump into our Pisces. Let's go check things out. And the idea is that you could leave your Carrack in orbit above you. Well, if that planet is moving, then that means that you also have to be calculating that your ship is moving along with it and also remaining in orbit at the same time. I mean, it could be out of orbit. It doesn't have to stay above wherever you are going down in your Pisces, but it does introduce another level of calculations and stuff. Yeah, Carrack is life, right? So yeah, this is something that they said they've talked about, but they're not really feeling it. Who knows years down the line? Right now, I'm satisfied with the planets being where they are and orbiting. The fact that they do orbit, I do appreciate that. I would love to see them make it so that when we have our ships in, that we can put our ships into orbit so that they can remain in place while we depart from those ships. That would be very cool too. But the whole complete orbital mechanics thing, we'll see. That's all I'll say about that.
That is, will the solar system's components be orbiting its sun? Wolfhelm asks, will flying in a formation provide any benefits such as a reduced radar signature? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know whether formation would mask how many ships are in it. I mean, Mark Abern and Paul were the two guys that worked on the radar, so I could ask them. I think we'd have to program it to be that way. So I don't know. I'm not sure whether it would also help or not help, but I don't have a good answer for that one. Sorry. Okay, next one.
Excuse me, Chris is chopping duty so fast I can't even get a chip down before he's done. So here's something that they did tell us about radar and scanning. They said, if I'm remembering correctly, it wasn't Brian Chambers. I can't remember who it was that was talking about this, but it was the guy with the eyes. I can't think of his name. He talked about, like, if you had a ship like the Carrack and you sent some probes out to do a scan, that depending on certain things, the scans will be able to tell you that there's something there. And I don't know if that's based on range or whatever, but he said that if you set them up in such a way, I think they gave an example of setting up 3 different probes and they were scanning an area, that they could show that there's something there. Now they said that the detail of it may be another factor. Now I don't know if that's because if the probes get close enough, they can start giving you more specifics, or whether they're just going to be able to tell you that something's there. But they said that you may see a big blob. That big blob may be a javelin or an Idris, or it may be a fleet of ships, a fleet of small ships. Whether or not you'd be able to detect at that, with probes, that there are 23 of these and 17 of these and 4, Krakens. I don't think they said you'd be able to do that from that range using probes. Now, I'm sure once you start getting in with other type of scanning, or your ship is in that system, you start being able to detect things. But we already know that they are doing that. That part they are doing. Okay. Todd Pappy, thank you, Will. Good to see you, Will. Will, did you win the other day? I think I heard you won. Was that you who won something during the giveaway? I know there was a Will somebody, but I can't remember if it was you or not. There was a Will somebody who won something. It's kind of funny that they want to implement the features they talk to. Unfortunately, a lot of people have either forgotten about it. Yeah, Red, that's kind of why we're doing that. Because people, not just people have forgotten about it, people don't know. And you're right, because they don't know, they do think some of this stuff is feature creep. They don't know that they talked about this stuff back in 2013 and 14. Yeah, Will, great. Congratulations, man. Good for you.
One comes from Lama Vras, who asks, have you already started looking at VAs to do the voice cast for the Persistent Universe and Squadron 42? And VAs would be voice actors. If so, can you give us a hint at who to expect? So unfortunately, I do not want to answer that yet. We are going to have some pretty interesting actors and some fun ones. Bring a couple of people back that have worked with me in the past, and then maybe also get some new interesting ones. But until we've sort of got that cast and done, we don't really want to announce anything. And that's sort of predicated on getting the script finalized. So we're deep in writing the Squadron 42 script. I think it's going to be a really great story, and then after that we would be doing the casting seriously. But it will be some pretty, it'll be some fun people, let me put it that way. Okay, next question comes.
Yeah, we did a show not too long ago about Squadron 42 with Soul Citizens too, and we talked about the cast. We went through several of the cast members and went through their resumes, and yeah, they've got a really big cast. If you guys haven't gone on to imdb.com, look up Squadron 42. The list is crazy of how many actors they have doing voice work in the game. There's a lot of people. I mean, you guys know all the famous folks that are in there. Gary Oldman and Mark Hamill and all those folks. And again, he's pulled people back from the days of Wing Commander that have worked with him, as well as new actors. So there's just a lot of stuff. So it's a pretty big cast. It's pretty big. I'm really curious to see what the budget's going to be once Squadron 40 is due, because we don't know what the exact budget is. But I am curious to see what the budget's going to be for Squadron.
Comes from Star Spartan, who asks, hi Chris, I was wondering how the team will be handling the borders of the known systems. For example, will there be an invisible barrier if one were hit the edge that would just stop the ship, or would my ship just keep going? Yeah, I don't think we're really going to have any borders. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we're moving to double precision on the system, so we don't really have the same kind of precision issues we have at Floating Point. I think we would probably just have you fly in endless open space, and then maybe at some point you'll run out of fuel. But we wouldn't stop you at the edge. I think it would just keep going. So I guess that's the answer on that one.
Pretty straightforward stuff. No borders, no boundaries. Seamless, as they put into their ad for Fully Loaded. Seamless transitions.
All right, last question comes from Live Vodane, who asks, will scams be possible allowed in game? Will we have to be always suspicious of other players and their intentions, thus keeping us in a state of constant paranoia of other players? Will there be a mechanic to make scams impossible? For example, why not allowing direct player-to-player sales and forcing players to buy and sell only from NPCs? So that's a good question. I mean, so there's a couple of things to consider there. One, trying to make the universe and the system feel as realistic as possible. Also sort of protecting people from people abusing the system for outside reasons, like gold farmers and stuff. So we were thinking that there would be sort of several levels. We'll probably let you trade between players. There will be some level in most of the cases of sort of a tax in trade between players. Very similar, like if I right now want to give my car to someone, I would have to sign the title over to them, and so there's a cost to signing the title over. And we will have that type of mechanic for a lot of sort of the trades. You know, I don't know on the player-to-player sales, we definitely want players to be able to sell to other players, so we're going to allow that. Depending on where you sell it, you'll obviously have to pay the taxes to your local place for selling, just like you would have to pay sales tax if you were selling to other people here, like where I am right now in California. Because I do want players to go and collect really cool things on parts of the galaxy and take them to other parts and sell them to other players for convenience. I think we'll sort of use the same system that we're talking about for the mission ratings, where both the seller and the buyer can rate each other, whether you're a good seller or whether you're a good buyer. And so obviously if someone has a good reseller rating, then you feel more comfortable than if they don't. And of course, buying from NPCs will probably be the safest of all the things that you can do. So I do think, to a certain extent, you may or may not have to be suspicious of other players, although when a player's selling to you, it's not quite the same as it is in the real world here, because if you're going to buy and sell it in our game, you probably would have to be face to face with that character, and once you sell it, the item's going to transfer. So it's not the same as I purchase something, give someone my credit card online here, and then the goods never show up, because we handle the brokering of the system, so we'll sort of make it so people can't scam each other as far as that stuff goes. So I think it's going to be better than real life, but we do want to keep a little element of real life in there, where there could be the potential for some players to be more dishonest or try and screw other players over, and there's a pro and con to that, just to make the game more interesting. And maybe that's sort of stuff that can only happen in the unregulated border worlds, or you couldn't do that in the UEE, say on Earth or on Terra, because on Terra you'd have to go through an official broker, and then you can't cheat in that case. But maybe you don't need a broker out on an outlaw planet, and so you may do that transaction because it's going to cost you less because it doesn't have the same taxes and fees, but then the risk is maybe someone screws you over. So that's kind of the risk or reward that we're sort of thinking about and playing with, and we want to build that into the game, which I think will sort of make it pretty interesting. So there you go. That's 10 questions.
Good. Hey, Marzipan. Good to see you. Okay, again, we're doing this to go over what do we have, what do we know we have, what are they working on, what is it in game. We know that money transactions are in now. We know that they do tax you, as you guys know. When you send money to somebody, there's a fee that goes out. But items have yet to be something that we can trade for monetary purposes, right? Or items. We can give people stuff, right? You could put stuff in one of those boxes and somebody can go in the box and get it. You could drop it on the ground, somebody can get it. But if you want to be able to sell things to someone, because right now, since there's no economy, it's not a big deal. But later on, yeah, if you pick up 20 rifles for your folks, because they say, hey, you're at this certain store someplace where these rifles are we use, can you pick up 20 of them? You obviously want to be able to be compensated for that, right? Everybody says, we'll meet up and we'll give them to you. For those of you who played ESO, ESO had both your personal bank and you had like a guild bank, which was cool. And in the guild bank, you could donate gold, but you could also put items there as well for other people. Whether or not CIG is going to implement something like that, don't know. It would be cool if they did. That it not only just transact currency or credits, but that it would also allow you to do items as well as a holding place. Now, when it comes to transacting for other people, the problem with ESO there is that you'd have to be with the person and connect with them and face to face and transact. I'm wondering how that will happen later. If I get hired to transport some stuff somewhere, am I going to negotiate with you and say 50% down, 50% upon delivery, or 20% down and 80% on delivery, or the other way around? And then how do I guarantee that I'm going to be paid once I do that? Obviously, if it's NPC based, no big deal, right? But if I'm doing it for a player who's hiring me out, how do I know that I'm going to get paid? So I don't know if you guys have any ideas about something like that, but I'm really curious as to how they will do that. Now, one of the things that we've talked about is, and we've said this before, is that CIG puts things in the game not just for decoration but for purpose. And you guys have seen those ATM machines all over the place, and I've wondered about those, whether those will actually become transaction points, places where if I want to load something in, like let's say it's in my inventory in my hangar or whatever, I can actually go to one of those kiosks and say, here's something that I'm putting up for sale. And someone else could go there and look at a list of items. Now, those of us who played New World had like that, the board where you could go and people were selling things that they crafted and manufactured. I know they got to figure out a way to do it. I just don't know how they're going to do it and keep it within lore. I do like the fact that there's taxation. Some people don't like that, but taxation helps drive the economy, right? They could do something that says this: if you're a citizen, your taxes are one thing versus if you are not a citizen. Maybe if you're not a citizen, you don't pay taxes, but you don't gain access to certain things, or maybe your fuel costs are higher when you stop at a UEE place to get fuel, or they could come up with, or your maintenance repairs. Maybe that's the benefit of paying taxes. Those things are covered if you're part of the UEE. If you're not a part of the UEE, you don't get taxed, but you also, when you do decide to drop into a UEE space, you do get impacted in some way. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff they can do to drive the economy, but they need to be things to make us spend money. And I'm saying that because it's very easy in games to get to a point where you've got so much money that you don't care anymore. That anything you can buy, you can just buy it. You don't even think about it because you just got so much money. You got to make sure that this game does not get to that level. There needs to be taxation. There needs to be fluctuating prices. You were making a lot of money moving Conundrum, and all of a sudden Conundrum falls through the floor, right? And now you can't make it, and now you've got to go 8 systems out or 9 systems out now to even break even on Conundrum. I mean, they need to do all types of things with the economy that keeps us always coming into the game, not to be always wanting money, but that we need to have credits in order to do certain things in the game. So that's my speech on that. Okay, so that's the first one. We got through episode 19 quick. Chris was very fast on that episode. Let's see if we can do episode 20 just as fast. And if we can, we'll do 21 because we're just at the top of the hour, okay? Thanks again, guys, for being here. Appreciate you all sitting in with me today.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those that you don't know, this is where I take 10 questions submitted by our subscribers and answer them to the best of my abilities. Subscribers are the subset of our backer community that put a little extra money every month towards our ability to do enhanced content for the whole community. So things like the Jump Point magazine, things like 10 for the Chairman, Wingman's Hangar, a bunch of the other stuff that we do is all sort of financed by the generous contributions of subscribers. So thank you very much. This is where I'll answer the questions. I just wanted to also say thank you very much to Track and Peacemaker, who are both fire captains down in Orange County, and they stopped by. I got a nice cap and a couple of challenge coins. So they stopped by to have lunch with Ben today and said hi. Very nice. Very nice folks and backers, so it's always really nice to actually meet everyone that's helping make this happen. So anyway, so thank you very much for that. All right, so let's get to the 10 questions. So the first question comes from Apple Crow Scythe Racer. So I don't know if he's a Scythe Racer or Apple Crow are two people at the same time, but asks, will players or orgs be able to run their own medical facilities? Could we perhaps outfit a larger ship like a Caterpillar? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you that don't know, this is where I take 10 questions from our subscribers
and
answer them to the best of my ability. Our subscribers are the portion of our community that kick extra money in every month to allow us to do enhanced sort of community content. So we do this show, Wingman's Hangar. We do Jump Point every month, which is usually somewhere between 50 and 70 pages of sort of detail behind the scenes how we're doing stuff. And the subscribers sort of enable us to do a higher level of community sort of reporting, showing you how the game is made, sort of pay for the crew to shoot the videos and do all that sort of stuff. So thank you very much for subscribers, because it allows us to do a higher level of communication engagement, which is fantastic. And but in general, speaking of all, you guys are great. So here there's some more gifts that I've received. So this one is from Attila Karoom, call sign Suprentis, I think. It's his favorite documentary series, and let's see what we got here, which I'm pretty sure it's something to do with planes and stuff. Yes, Dogfights, the complete series. That is brilliant, especially considering we're getting ready to release a dogfight module. So awesome. I'm definitely going to check this out, because I don't think I've actually seen this one. So brilliant. Thank you very much. And then on top of that, we also have from this is from Hong Kong. This is from Aaron McGill, who's in Hong Kong, and he's giving us a whole bunch of really cool stuff from China and Hong Kong. So Chinese teas, tea cakes, cookies, biscuits. There's a variety of Japanese snacks for everyone in the office to enjoy. Some old trinkets and decorations. So let's have a look here. That's pretty crazy. Wow. That crazy Japanese biscuits. Some more. Wow. Oh, maybe that's Korean. These are Korean, actually, I think. Wow, look at all this stuff. So, look at that. Some nice Chinese tea. Some more Chinese tea.
Good googly moogly.
Something for me.
Beat the whole office.
A fun gift for me to not use when I fly, so I suspect it's probably alcoholic. Or not, I don't know. Oh, these are cool little scrolls. That's pretty awesome. Yep. Hong Kong thingy. So lots of stuff here. There we go. It's pretty awesome. Anyway, so I'll hand this out to the team, and thank you very much, Aaron. That was really cool to send us a little slice of the Orient. We're going to have like a... Okay, all right. I love Dango. All right. Okay, here we go. Let's put this down over here and get to... time for the chairman.
Whoa, let me go back
okay.
a second. Did you guys see that? Are those computers?
Now let's put this down over.
You guys see that? Those are cases, right? Computer cases on the floor. Man, they need to sell those. Wow, they need to sell those. Those are the ship manufacturers. No, they're not not on the floor down there. They'd be smoking up that tight, close together. No, it can't be servers. But they could be. You know what? Because there's no front, right? I mean, but that would be a funky place to put them. They'd be in a stand or a rack or something. But they looks like computer cases. 318. You're funny, Chill. That is funny. Yeah, that would be cool though, if you could get your manufacturer. You know that people would snatch those up in a heartbeat, right? They would truly snatch those up in a heartbeat. The main gear too, really. Yeah, they're too close together. Yeah, the heat they'd be that those suckers would be on fire. But that those man, if they sold those, oh my god, we need to write into them and say what happened to those things. Those say main gear. Yeah, it says main gear, BBG on the side here, going down. You're right. I didn't even notice that. I just saw the ship, the or manufacturer titles. I'm forgive my ignorance. Is main gear a case maker? Because I've never seen that before. Wow, that's neat, man. Shoot.
Time for the chairman.
They need to put those.
Now let's put this down over here and get to.
Oh, boutique building. Oh, okay.
Time for the chairman.
Check that out.
Okay, so well, thanks for those awesome gifts, and let's get to the questions. So, old one, I was going to say old dong, but that's wrong. Old one asks, will there be collision in dogfight? If yes, will the colliding ships sustain damage? Yes, is the simple answer on that. There definitely is collision in the dogfight, and you do sustain damage.
Simple
and in
answer.
fact, I'm not sure if we've shown on some of the videos, but yeah, one of the actual ways that people tend to die is they collide because the speed of the ships is pretty deceptive. I know I saw a few comments thinking that the ships weren't actually flying that fast, but they actually are flying pretty fast. And so when you're doing a head-to-head pass, a lot of times you have to watch it because you're like all of a sudden far away, and then boop, it's right there. You're like, oh no, and pull up, and if the two people pull up in the same direction, boom. So we're going to tweak the damage, but there's definitely damage that gets sustained in collisions in the dogfight and in general in space. All right, next question comes from Napoleon the 24th. Wow, there's a long line of Napoleons there. When we buy another ship in game, do we trade our old one if we want to? Also, on the old ships that might be traded in by other players, will we be able to buy used ships, or are they taken down to their elements and sold as scrap metal? Yeah, I think when you buy another ship in the game, you will have the option to trade it in or keep your current ship, so it'd sort of be up to you. I would say that in general, it depends on the kind of ships, but it's always good probably to have more, if you can sort of store it and have more than one ship, because the ships are very sort of role specific. So, you know, if you want to be trading, that's a very different ship that you probably will need to be flying than if you want to be sort of a mercenary and just doing dogfighting, because they you know, there isn't really a ship that's like the jack of all trades that does everything. Yes, there are some ships that you can take cargo and they can dogfight on, but if you want to really haul cargo, then you would probably want to be flying things like the Freelancer or the Starfarer, and obviously they aren't necessarily the best dogfighting ships out there. But if you want to trade it in, say you were upgrading to a bigger cargo ship or a better dogfighter, then yeah, the game will allow you to trade it in, just like you would normally now if you were getting a car. And we are going to have second-hand ships that would probably be in the universe. So there are some, like in our persistent universe, and some of the planets we already have sort of the you know, equivalent of a used car dealership in some places, and that would be a place to get ships that would be second-hand, used, worn down a bit, maybe, you know, not quite as pristine or as efficient as what you would buy on a new showroom floor. Again, just like the real world. And I would assume that some that get traded in get also put down to scrap metal, because there's only going to be so much inventory we would want to keep out in the persistent universe. Okay, next question.
Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. Now, you know, you guys, for those of you who follow me on Soul Citizens, you've heard me say this before. The game we play now is not the game that we'll be playing later. Tell me the scenario. I see what you were saying, Chill, about you got some extra ships. Tell me a scenario where you would trade in a ship. Because to me, the only reason to trade in a ship would be to upgrade. You're doing 0 to hero. Because if you paid for your ships, you got them, right? If you spent money backing. But let's say you get your ship in game. What would be the reason to trade it? Are you? Let me say it this way: will you become so broke that it's better for you to trade and upgrade than it is to save and get the ship? Okay. You're building outposts. Okay. Trading up makes sense. Yeah. Going from a cutter to a cutty. Yeah, agreed. But I guess I'm taking y'all down a path here. If a cutter, I don't know what a cutter costs in game, but let's say a cutty's 2 million, 1.5 million, and a cutter's like 600,000, 400,000, whatever. If that's the price difference, isn't it easier just to save the money versus upgrading and keep your cutter? See, to me, it says that there's going to be a reason why you gotta that something's going to make you decide that it's better for me to get rid beyond not using it anymore. I can understand if you get a ship and you just realize I thought I'd like this and I'm not digging it. I'm going to upgrade. But I'm just kind of wondering because here's the deal. Our ships are going to have to be, you're going to have ships all over the place, right? I mean, you're going to have a home base, but you're not going to have all your, well, maybe you will. Maybe you will have all your ships in Nix. You know, I keep trying to picture the fact that wherever my ship's going to be spread out based on what I'm doing. So am I going to be in a populated system when I want to do certain things? And am I going to be out in the outer reaches when I like my Orion and stuff? Am I going to keep that way out in the sticks somewhere? Not so close to the central parts of the UEE. So getting rid of ships to me is going to be kind of weird because, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's always going to be a way to get around. Always going to be a way to get around. If you only own 4 ships, you can get around. But if there are freaking, let's just pick a random number, 20 systems in the game, and those systems all have, moons and all the other stuff, you got to be able to, you're gonna want to have ships kind of strategically placed. You know what I mean? For travel's sake. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you bought a Vulture in game and tried it. Yeah, and it wasn't for you. Yeah, I agree with that. Now I agree with that. I see now people in global complaining about the ships cost at 2 million. I think only diehards would just save and keep. Okay, that might be it. Yeah, that might be it. People don't want to do the hard work and they just rather sell their ship. Maybe eventually you will have to pay, dry dock fees, for storing your ships. Yeah. So if you got a bunch of ships, you got to be able to support it, right? You got to be able to pay that money. Those are good points. Okay. You guys gave me some stuff to think about. Okay. Here we go.
Question comes from Lama Vras, who asks, how would max velocity at cruising not be energy efficient? If we are in space, we are moving without friction and only the relative gravity fields of different celestial bodies acting upon our ships. We shouldn't be continually applying thrust because we won't be suffering from the effects of drag to slow us down. Are there then factors that we don't know of that will slow us down or cause our thrusters to constantly be firing? So no, the simple answer is no. Actually, we don't have any sort of elements that would retard your speed. So once you're at a certain speed and you're moving at it, as long as you don't want to change your direction, you're not really firing your thrusters or energy and stuff. And really the flight control system limits your speed at sort of the low velocity stuff, which is where you would be dogfighting, purely because of G-force and pilot sort of safety issues. That's when you step up to sort of autopilot or warp, where you're going to move quickly in system, then it accelerates much faster, but then obviously it's going to go in a straight line, and that's also why it pulls you out of autopilot or warp before you get close to another ship or other celestial body, because at those kind of speeds, like even 0.2 of the speed of light, you just can't deviate your course quick enough to avoid the collision without doing significant damage or killing the occupants, because you'd have to it would be a lot of forces to just even deviate a small amount at that sort of speed. So we are energy efficient. So like if you were at whatever the top sort of low velocity that the IFCS sets, and you're just going straight, it's not firing any thrusters. You're just basically cruising. And so the thrusters are really only being used and the fuel's only being consumed when you are essentially changing your velocity vector or your orientation. Okay, so next question comes from...
we kind of already know that, guys. We've got the coupled decoupled thing. You guys know your ship will continue to move. Not an issue, but quantum's different. Quantum travel obviously is different. But for the regular, SCM speeds and stuff, we know that that's the way they've got it laid out in the game.
Tsuto, Tsuto, who asks, will we be able to name our ships? If so, will this name be visible to others, decals, targeting information, etc.? So the answer is yes, you will be able to name your ships, and we plan to have the ship's name on a decal, so you should see it on the hull, and also it should show up in the targeting information. Now, in Dogfight V1, that won't be a feature, but that is definitely a feature for the persistent universe.
Okay, there we go. We've got that one. There's a check mark. We do know we can name ships. They have the ships named. You also know when you scan ships, you can see the name of the ship, you can see the pilot, all the other good stuff in there. So that's one that is accomplished.
Okay, next question comes from The Tick, who asks, since you plan to add a comprehensive first-person shooter element in the game, will there be missions in Star Citizen that will incorporate both ground and space objectives? Yes, that is a 100% yes. That will be the case in Squadron 42 as well. Since you plan to...
Let me go back. So let's see. Is it though, if you hold it 900 milliseconds, you're saying currently no hydro gets used. In space, if you don't thrust and you go decoupled, yeah, I thought you kept moving. I don't think it's running unless you couple again. And maybe somebody can tell me if that, I could be wrong. I just assumed that because it was decoupled, it wasn't burning fuel anymore. I mean, I know that weren't some of the ships able to refuel themselves too? That's a good question, Joe. You can decouple and save fuel. Yeah, you can decouple and save fuel. Yeah, Origin can at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, because I'll take that 100i around and I'll come back and the thing is freaking full tank. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it saved fuel. That's a good question. I have to go in and look. Let's go ahead and take a look and see. But I thought if you went decoupled in a straight line, it wouldn't burn fuel as much. Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, in space there's no friction, so you shouldn't be getting slowed down. I haven't tried it, but hey, there we go. Time something to do for science. It only burns during throttle. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I said. As long as if you're decoupled and you're not throttling, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, this is back to Tick.
To add a comprehensive first-person shooter element in the game, will there be missions in Star Citizen that will incorporate both ground and space objectives? Yes, that is a 100% yes. That will be the case in Squadron 42 as well as in the persistent universe. So we're definitely going to have some fun stuff that I think it's just going to add to the level of feeling like you're in a whole complete world. So it's not just about flying around. So for instance, like if you went out and you found like a derelict ancient ship floating in an asteroid field somewhere, and you go and explore it, you would explore it in first person. Like you would dock, you would get on, you'd explore it, and hey, we may even have some alien creatures that could attack you, and we'll have other situations where perhaps you would get attacked. Like you're down on a more sketchy planet and some people try to mug you in the cargo bay when you're unloading your cargo, so you have to whip out your laser pistol and defend yourself. So there'll definitely be elements that will have sort of nice sort of PvE elements that will play into the first-person shooter side, which will be separate than what we'll be doing for the sort of PvP first-person shooter stuff, which is more like fighting with other people or boarding their ship. So I think it's really going to sort of add to the color. I mean, one of the really nice things, if you saw the dogfighting video, is just the fact that you can eject out of your Hornet and you're there in zero-G and looking around at space like this it's really cool. It just sort of makes it feel much more tangible instead of it sort of the abstract. I'm always in my ship, a cockpit. You sort of feel like you're a person, and you can get into ships, you can get out of ships, you can travel around. So we're really going to sort of like push that, because that's kind of one of the really big goals of the game.
Okay, let's see. Karma Dealer, thank you for the follow. Appreciate you being here. Interesting points here about AI, what do you call it, PvE. This question about what will happen with the scenarios of air and ground combat. But the thing I really want to focus on was him talking about the PvE, and he talked about, when you're on the ground, that there will be things that you have to worry about, such as a creature. He talked about the fact that even NPCs will be able to, possibly while you're loading your ship, may come and attack you. We know that CIG has been working on this whole thing with AI and then being able to traverse outside on the ground now. I have been just waiting for them to bring the freaking Boreal Stalker into the game. I can't wait. I want that scary thing out there in the world running around where I have to worry about it. And I want to be able to not have to work. I don't say this the right way. I don't mind worrying about humans, but most of the time, you guys know when you land someplace, you're really not going to really run into somebody. You might run into somebody on their way to do something like that. But I really would love to know that when we go certain places, like right now, when we get a bunker mission, it'd be so cool that when we arrive, that there actually maybe some guards out on patrol outside, or we see them coming in and out of the bunker. That would be like really cool. So you have to have the upstairs fight first, then you can go to the elevator and take the downs. Right now, we get out of our ship. I always laugh at people because people jump out their ship and they're, I'm like, put your gun away. There's nobody out here. You're gonna shoot somebody. Wait till we get on the elevator. You know, that's me. I get on the elevator. I check my stuff, make sure everything's ready. Boom, I'm ready to go. You know, but yeah, it would be great that when we get off our ship now we do have to pay attention. We do have to go behind rocks. We have to look and see if there's anybody there and do surveillance before we start pushing forward. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the PvE sides of this. We know that Tony Z is working on that, so that where there's activity, certain things in Quanta trigger because we happen to go somewhere, all that cool stuff, right? That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing happen, you know, in the game. You know, yeah, like Ghost Hollow. Yes, Chill. Yes, like Ghost Hollow. We're getting there. We're getting there, right? We're getting there. We just need to see it expand beyond Ghost Hollow.
Next question comes from Zen Grin, who asks, will our characters have damage states? I don't mean missing limbs, etc., although that would be interesting having limbs replaced cybernetically. I mean, since there are usable toilet showers in the game whose use would be optional, would using them maintain a cleaner appearance, while lack of use would have you end up looking like a backwater unwashed space pirate. So not really damage states, you're talking about, I guess, cleanliness states. There definitely, by the way, will be damage. We have limb damage already part of the system. It's already partly modeled in our first-person shooter stuff, so when we show that and reveal it later this year, you'll see a lot of that. And we're also going to have some level of aging for the characters, so as you get older, we'll want them to sort of feel like they get older, the same way that we want ships to have sort of wear and tear. So we'll have that. I don't know about the cleaning, the grubby thing, but I kind of like it as an idea, so it's kind of cool. It's all would probably be based in the same system because we sort of have a blend system that, you know, you set up the pristine thing and then you have the like really sort of dirty, worn thing, and then you sort of just blend between them on a scale of 0 to 1. So it actually would probably be not that different or difficult to do. It would be kind of along the same lines as the ship. So I will take that under advisement because we're already setting it up for the aging and some of the other stuff. So you never know. You could be an unwashed pirate, or you could go scrub yourself up in a shower. All right, next question.
You guys don't want to walk around looking grubby. Okay, so here's my question, right? I'm curious about this aging thing. Is aging going to be in real time? What do you guys think? Because, not to be funny, but if I create my character and my character looks whatever age, you know, 35 years old, I mean, do I expect my character to still be that same character to still be alive in the game? Okay, maybe CIG is expecting this, that the dynamics and the structure of the game make it so that I can actually have a character that lives 3 years later. At 3 years later, I'm still playing that same character. I, for some reason, keep picturing if I make it 6 months to a year, that might be a good thing. But I mean, are they talking about your character being able to be around for 8 years and you actually see an aging process that takes place? And even then, how significant is that aging process? I'm not sure how significant it would be unless there's some accelerated thing. I don't know how they would do that so that it actually was reflected in some way that when you saw me, you know, at some point, you're like, oh, Griff, I can see you're older now. You know, what? Is it going to be accelerated? Like maybe I age a year every month or something? I don't know. I'm just curious about this age thing. You know, double time in real life, yeah, would be good. Come back to the game after 10 years and you're 20 years older. Okay, yeah, that's what I mean. Maybe they've got to do an accelerated time. Yeah, because real time just doesn't make sense to me. You don't want to you don't want to age in game too. I know you want to stay young. I know why you gotta say you gotta watch yourself get old in your computer monitor at the same time, right, Cap? Yeah, I get it. But I am curious as to what they're gonna do with that aging thing, you know. Otherwise, a day in the game is like 5 minutes, 24-hour gaming session. It's time to retire. Yeah. Okay.
Question comes from Irregarding Blix. Will we be able to modify our missile torpedoes? Can we have the ability to make our missiles faster at the expense of explosive payload or slower but carry more explosives? So we weren't really thinking that the players would be adjusting parameters of their actual individual missiles. I think that would be more down to the missiles that you would buy. So you can get one that is a faster missile but has less of a payload, or you can have one that's slower that has a bigger payload. And so really that's just based on the ordnance you're going to buy. Okay, so next question comes from Rick, who asks, after playing some frustrating Battlefield 4 today and living through the regular netcode problems that plague it, I wonder what plans are afoot to make Star Citizen as hack-free as possible. Well, we're trying hard. We obviously want to make it a good experience for everyone. I can't promise you that we'll be any more successful than some other people have been, but we definitely have kind of a nice system that essentially you have to have server authoritative to make sure that you're always sort of watching everybody so they're not cheating. So we're a server authoritative model, which helps, but we have limited client trust. So basically what happens is we let the client simulate and the server also simulates. And as long as the client's close to where the server is, it's okay. And if it starts to deviate too much, we lose trust in the client, and then the server starts to basically say, no, you're here in this position. The nice thing about that means that the actual simulation locally, as long as you're not cheating, is generally like really smooth. It feels like playing a single player game because we don't wait for the server to tell us where we are. We sort of basically simulate locally, and as long as you're close enough by the time the server's looked at what your state is, then it's okay. On a hack basis, since the server is really authoritative and it's always checking stuff, and we've got some other checks going on, it hopefully will help prevent some of the cheating that you can see when people have their aim bots and all the rest of stuff. But it's early days yet, and actually one of the interesting things about having the community and testing this stuff so early is that I'm assuming that we'll be able to sort of like see a lot of this stuff and address it and work on it before we have, we're finally, the full game is done and it's a full general public release. And so hopefully we'll be in better state, but it's early days yet, so who knows? And that's a battle that I think will be waged for a long time. The next question.
Okay, as you guys know, there have been some cheats that have been implemented into Star Citizen from time to time. One of the earliest ones I remember was actually in Arena Commander. There was a cheat that allowed people to see through walls cheat, right, where people could win, the battles. Because they could see through the walls. And then just recently, earlier this year, there was a cheat going around that people were actually able to pay for that gave them advantages during dogfighting and combat. And CIG has been trying to work on that, which is great. And I agree. If there's a time for us to find out about this stuff, it's now. As frustrating as it may be, this is the time to find out, so they could try to see where all the cracks and little holes are that they have in their area that they need to plug up, right, to make sure that no one can go in and exploit. Now, we do get exploits, and the exploits come because of programming or a bug or something like that, but we're talking about people who actually figure out ways to hack in and cheat in the game. And it's always going to be something that CIG is going to be vigilant about when it comes to security in the game.
Question comes from Toti, who asks, hey Chris, in my pledge I have a 3-inch model of a spaceship. My questions are, will we be able to choose which ship the model will be of, and will we be able to buy more models without a pledge? So I don't think you choose, because I think the model of the spaceship came with all the packages that had the Constellation as a base ship. So I believe the model is actually of the Constellation. I know I've been seeing some early sort of prototypes of the models, and they look very cool. So I think pretty much your model spaceship will be just a Constellation. We are talking about the potential of maybe making some physical model versions of other spaceships, and we're sort of researching that as a possibility. Although that requires a lot of work, and it isn't actually necessarily very cost effective. So if we did something like that, they probably would be. They would cost some money, and they would require a lot of work and from our side, and not necessarily really have any profit in it, which for us, the profit's all extra money we get to put towards the game. So we like to have some things that if we even sell physical goods, there's a bit of a profit in it, so we can basically make a bigger, better game. So we try to avoid to do physical items that are basically break even, because that requires a lot of manpower and a lot of thought and a lot of juggling, and also customer service headaches, because did you get your package? Did it get through customs? All the rest of stuff. And so we have staff that do just deal with that, and obviously that's stuff that is we could be spending money working on the game instead. So so I don't know, but we're all geeks and we all like the idea of cool spaceships. So we're kind of partial to potentially maybe trying to make some. So we'll see what happens there, but no promises yet.
If you guys have been around for a while, again, we talked about this on Soul Citizens. We did a show last month called what was it called? I forget what it was called. Merchandise Mart. And we went through a lot of, about 80% of the merchandise that CIG has ever sold. We talked about it and we showed some of it off. One of them was an item that Geo actually owned, which was what Chris talked about, was a model of the Constellation. It was the Constellation Mark II, and it was die-cast metal. It had some rubber parts and plastic parts to it, but it was a die-cast metal model. And it was about that long. It was pretty big, like about 6 to 8 inches long. It was a pretty decent sized model. Not very highly detailed, but it was definitely enough you could look at it and see what it was. It came on a little stand. Those things sold. They disappeared quickly, but they were expensive. I want to say they ran $75 up to $100. CIG has, and people have always asked about ships, just like they asked about t-shirts. But CIG, as you guys know, have now licensed out ships to JRDF. They are the ones who now are producing these models that you can purchase. And I'm assuming that because the licensing is there, that's pretty much where it's going to stay. CIG probably isn't going to produce anything unless they do some type of collector's edition when Squadron comes out or something like that. But to produce all the different ships, they said there's no profit in it for them, in the sense of they'll spend a lot of money to do it and time. They'd rather focus in on developing the game.
Okay, last question this week. It comes from Graham, who asked, can you tell us a little about your vision for the command and control centers on the larger ships? What will the interface be like? 2D map on a screen, 3D hologram? How much control will the command and control have over other ships under his/her command, waypoint, target assignment, etc.? So yeah, so the idea of the command and control, I think maybe you've seen some of the dogfight footage. We have this sort of hollow radar sphere. So a lot of time, the command and control is just going to be a much bigger, more detailed version of that, where you can see all the different ships, their holograms, the actual ships themselves flying around, and you can sort of click on them and get information on them, and you can sort of say, click here, and you attack here, or you defend this person. And essentially, you'll be sort of tasking instructions and orders out to the ships. If they're NPC owned, then run, then obviously the NPCs will obey you. If they're player run, essentially you're getting instructions from the commander that has a full battle tactical view and telling you what to do. So hopefully, if your organization plays as a team, then you'll listen to those controls and commands. And essentially, the idea would be that on some of the bigger ships, that's you would basically have someone that would run sort of the battle ops, so to speak, and they would be sort of directing the fighter air cover, or assigning different ships to attack this other ship over here. So what I'm kind of hoping, when we get down later, this is probably sort of the dogfight V2 or V3, probably more like V3, when we have a couple of big capital ships. It'll be kind of fun to see two groups of players come in, like maybe in two corvettes or whatever, and go launch their fighters and go at each other, and there'll be sort of a mixed command and control. I mean, it's going to be almost like a whole other game, a lot of co-op, and I think it'll be pretty fun. And there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going on besides just command and control on the big ships. We're going to do a sort of more in-depth piece about that in the near future. Foundry 42, who's one of our studio in the UK that's taking the lead on Squadron 42, is going to sort of take lead on the big ship systems because they need it for Squadron 42, and they're also going to do it for the persistent universe. And there's some really great stuff I've seen going back and forth. I mean, because it's not just, like I said, command and control. There's engineering, there's helm, there's life support. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things, communication, radar. And so the idea is a lot of different players, if they work together optimally, could maybe run this ship really efficiently and well, and have a big edge against someone that isn't doing the same kind of thing. So, and certainly if the players are doing it, they're going to have an edge over the NPCs. So we'll make it so the NPCs are good, but they're not as good as like an efficiently run sort of player group of running a ship, which is great because I really want to have this sort of sense of cooperative play in the game. So you fly by yourself or you fly with your friends to achieve things. I think the cooperative side is as much fun as anything else that you can do. I mean, that's generally when I've played other games. Even when you're playing against other players, the fun thing is when you're cooperatively working with other people against other players or other NPCs. So that's a big focus for us, and command and control will be kind of like that. Like if you've seen any of these, like the big hollow tables, like, I don't know, you see an Ender's Game or you saw in Prometheus, it'll be sort of that kind of interface where you're standing by it and you can click and rotate around and see stuff. So it should be very cool. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this episode of 10.
Okay, so command and control. This is kind of funny. You guys have seen on certain ships like the Carrack, I think the 600i, they've got like a globe, the hollow globe, and Chris has had this in here for a while. I'm sitting here thinking about the technology that they're talking about being able to create to do this, where in real time you could be on your Carrack or your Idris, because the Idris has one, the Javelin has one, and someone is literally clicking on this particular ship and telling this ship that they need to attack here, because they've got a better overall view of the battlefield, right? And I'm just thinking about the tech that's going to be involved in that, so that now you or me as a commander in a fighter ship get a signal and a pin to go after somebody. Now we already have pinning in the game, we know that, but to be able to remotely do that, and it's done from within a ship. But imagine someone who's in another ship, they're in an Idris somewhere, and they are telling you in your ship, this is what you need to respond to. And then in real time, they're getting the data and information of what's going on in that battle. That's pretty impressive. I don't know anybody out there who's doing anything like that. And maybe if you guys in chat knows some game that has some mechanic that kind of is similar to that. And I understand, even the idea of the fact that, NPCs, you're going to be able to control them, you'll be able to control real players. But it's so easy to miss that Chris Roberts is literally thinking so far ahead, and Cloud Imperium is trying to develop some things that are really truly out of the box, for lack of a better term. They really are, which is pretty cool. Like the Battlefield series where you have, yes, a commander. Yes, absolutely. It's just an interesting thing to me. To see that the technology's gotten to that point now where they're going to be able to do stuff like that. Ooh, that was an unflattering picture of Chris. All right, let's do episode 21. I think we can squeeze it in. We got 20 minutes. Yeah, we can knock it out. We can knock it out by a quarter after. Thanks again, guys, for hanging out here with me. Let's get one more in for the day.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of 10 for the Chairman. For those of you that don't know, this is where I take 10 questions that have been asked by our subscribers, and I answer them to the best of my ability, which hopefully is as good as anyone else on this project. The subscribers are the subset of the overall backer community that kick in extra money every month to allow us to do additional sort of content for the community. So there's 10 for the Chairman, Wingman's Hangar, some other shows that we're going to be doing. Also the Jump Point magazine that we do every month, which originally was going to be 4 to 6 pages, but is now something more like 50 to 70 pages. And we've also got some more content that we're going to be working on ongoing to try and bring more stuff to everyone that has backed the game, so you can see how we make the game, how we're going about it, what our thoughts are, and feel part of the team. So thank you to the subscribers for allowing us to do that. And speaking of backers, we have right here some nice New Hampshire maple syrup, lots of it for a big sweet tooth, and some maple bacon coffee, which I think so everyone can be wired on sugar and caffeine, which is brilliant. That comes from Screwball. He was says it was great to meet some of you at the PAX East Dogfight reveal. I know you've all been working some long hours to build up the best damn space sim ever. So here's some fresh taped Northern Comfort from the live 3 or die state to make your mornings a little brighter. Thank you for all you do. Live 3 or die state is New Hampshire, and I guess little data point is the original where Origin first started was actually New Hampshire, and the corporate headquarters of Origin, where I made the Wing Commanders and everything, was in New Hampshire. So there was a few times I spent up in New Hampshire, which was very pretty, although in the winter not particularly warm. So it's a very very pretty state. So thank you very much, Screwball. And he also includes, if any of you are up for some Star Citizen karaoke, I've included some lyrics for your amusement. It would be awesome to hear you folks sing this as an Easter egg at the end of one of your videos. See you in the verse, Screwball. And he has a Back Me, which is by Screwball, based on Happy by Pharrell Williams. So anyway, we'll see what we could do with this. Could be fun. You never know. It might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sometime next year we can take a break, like a trip to the moon. We could go to space. Paid the fare for the captain's chair. Now we're on the way. Because you back me. Anyway, let's get on to the questions. All right, first question is from Krell, who asks, will we see the effects of different levels of gravity in the first-person shooter part of the game? I know that you're going to support zero-G environments. How about high-G or low-G environments, such as a moon base? Will we walk with a heavier tread or a spring in our step? Basically, there's a full gravity system already in the CryEngine, and we've sort of been enhancing it. So you could set the gravity to Earth-like gravity, minus 9.8 meters per second, or you could set it to -1 or whatever you want to do, or 0, which is what I was in space. So there definitely potentially could be the ability to have gravity in between, like full Earth-like and 0G. And we have things like magnetic boots that will allow you to sort of lock down to floors when there's low gravity or 0 gravity. So I guess the only question I would say is, walking with a heavier tread or a spring in your step would probably require different animation sets, because really the actual gait is controlled by the animation. So I don't know, it depends on whether we're actually planning to have some like low G or heavy G environments, and then potentially we'd probably change out the animation set. But generally the physics of everything is actually supported. It's just the footstep to footstep bit that is more animation driven. Okay, next question.
Keep that in mind. He talked about the mag boots, and we talked about this a few episodes back, because it's the second time it's come up since we've been watching 10 from the Chairman. And we went back, I told you guys, go back and look at the commercial for the Vulture. It's the first time we see mag boots implemented. People talked about it. It's so funny because this is why we're doing this, because people don't know that Chris talked about this stuff. When the Vulture commercial came out and they were showing them cut up the ship and do all this stuff, and then he went out on the left arm, the port arm of the ship, and walked down it, and people said, "Oh, you can't do that in the game. That's not possible." And it's like, yeah, guys, they want to put it in the game. So we saw the guy walk out to the end, and then he jumped off. That's because they do want to do mag boots. So just so you know, mag boots are something that's going to come in the game. Okay. That's just, I just want to kind of throw that in there, because again, that's why we're going over this stuff. These are not new ideas. These ideas have been around. This is May 19th of 2014, and they were talking about mag boots. Okay, so just want to throw that in about that. And the gravity thing. Oh, I want to say about that last piece we were talking about. Chris named all these different sections of the ship that will be implemented. He mentioned life support, communications, engineering, and I know a lot of times we're not thinking about those things because they happen in the ship. Just, right now, there's nothing to focus on. But we know with the components and stuff coming in, the physicalized components, all of those things are now going to become impacted. And if you guys remember, there was a video like a couple of years ago where Chris talked about, when he gave the example about the bullet that pierces the the skin of the ship and cuts off the oxygen or the electrical. And he talked about that they actually are making these ships so that oxygen flows through these ships. I mean, that's God. This is going to be a whole nother area of things. Vacuum, all that other stuff. This is so much stuff that they have to do for this. You know, it is, and I think a lot of it is stuff that is not implement. It's done, or they've started on it. But there's certain aspects of the game that have to be in place before that stuff can be given to us. But just the fact that they were thinking about this and talking about it and working on it so long. I mean, hopefully it all comes together. I know people say, well, where is it at? And I get that. Let's just hope that things start to drop very quickly because so much time has passed. But we'll see.
Question comes from Ro, R-H-O, who asks, one of my favorite themes in space sci-fi is the danger that comes from isolation in deep space and the total reliance on the ship tech that you've used to get there. Star Citizen is focused on dogfighting, and that's super great, but outside of that core mechanic, will there be experience where the biggest danger isn't pirates or bounty hunters, but rather the environment itself, perhaps during deep space exploration or mining? Yes, so we're absolutely actually focused on having things that are not, combat's obviously a large part, but we want experiences that are non-sort of combat oriented, so exploration experiences, flying into a dangerous nebula that could take down your radar or make your electronics a bit glitchy. In fact, in Squadron 42, the opening missions around this Shubin mining base, which we've already shown, and there's a center to this sort of asteroid base that's sort of almost like, think of it like the Bermuda Triangle, where there's like all communications and stuff sort of doesn't really work in there. Your nav stuff doesn't work, so you've got to manually navigate. So we're actually looking at doing a fair amount of sort of environmental situation stuff that could be hazardous to your flight or danger.
Yeah, they did
same kind of stuff that happens if you were trying to navigate a jump point. There'll definitely be a whole bunch of stuff that is non-combat oriented. There'll be that, and we want you to be able to have to, like, maybe some of your equipment breaks down, you're flying, you have to go fix it up. The sort of classic sort of sci-fi scenes you've seen when someone's Scotty's trying to make the engines work on the Enterprise. So yeah, we are focused on that. That will be part of some of the stuff that we do on some of the capship stuff that the Foundry 42 team is working on. So they're going to bring some of that, but environmental effects on your ship is definitely a core part of what we want to do to sort of make the universe sort of feel big and alive and rich. Okay, next question comes from.
That's a good question. The person says, what are some of the other dangers in space beyond humans? And I have a real issue with that anyway. I'm an old Star Trek guy, guys. Don't get me wrong. I love Star Wars and Starship Troopers and things of that nature, but I'm way more a Trekkie. And when you came up on Star Trek was basically about exploration, and it was about seeing what's out there was kind of the attitude, and human beings had gotten past our more primal self. I'll put it that way. And so to me, there are times when I get a little frustrated with gaming because I desire for gamers to look for a bigger picture than just shooting at each other. And don't get me wrong, I love combat. I love shooting. I love helping somebody out, getting a turret. I love the excitement and the adrenaline rush of it. But I don't love if that's all there is to it, if that's all there is. And I think it needs to be for a reason, something worth fighting for beyond my ego. And that's what I want to see the game produce. I want it to produce reasons for why if I need to battle, there's a reason for me to jump in and want to jump in. Not just because it's about saving my ship, but maybe there's something even bigger than that for why I'm doing it. And then I'm also hoping that there will be those opportunities where, there may be, combat that goes on between the human forces. But then I'm also looking for what's that bigger fish out there that makes all of us say, hey, whatever we're going through, we can settle this later. We need to go out here and tackle, this other thing that's going to eat all of us up. I really want to see that type of stuff happen in the verse, where there are those occasions where when the Van Duel, we get a report, everybody's sitting around doing stuff. You're loading up your ships, you're in the bar, or you're out mining, or you're even in combat. And all of a sudden, all the UEE screens come on and say that there's been an attack on this particular planet in this particular UEE system, and we need help. There's distress calls going out. So now you've got people who are jumping into their Apollos and going out. You're getting people who are jumping into their starfarers and going out because we know that they're going to be combat ships and fighters that are going out. People are getting their Kraken and loading it up. I mean, I want to see reasons for us to get out there and engage beyond just the fact of, well, there's somebody moving, let me shoot them. That makes sense. Hopefully I'm not minimizing that. And I know we don't have it, so that's all we do have right now a lot of times is, hey, that guy's moving, shoot him. But I really want there to be a greater motivation for us to engage in the game. That would just be like so cool, you know. Yeah, I think that the Vanduul attacks would be JUDE already have ships in the game, but just need AI systems. Yeah. I mean, we've got some of the Vanduul ships now, but even then, so this goes back to what I was saying earlier about, you know, even the backers. And I know sometimes, you know, the ships aren't that great, blah blah blah. But man, you know, just to be able to see those ships out there flying around, like, you know, not to be funny, but even like now, you know, how often do you see like a Vanduul blade come in and land at a station, right? I mean, when that happens, that should be kind of creepy, you know. And I know there are people who like, I don't own a blade, I own some of the other ones, but you know, when an alien ship comes in, you know, it should be kind of like a, you know, it's kind of like when you watch a Lamborghini pull up, you know, like everybody kind of stops and looks. At least to me, that's what it should be. Captain Jones, I like, it would be nice to have some first contact diplomacy and exploration game loops. Absolutely. Yeah, that would be cool. I'm really hoping CIG just does stuff. You know what I mean? Like, no announcement, no nothing. You just literally, the freaking monitors light up and such is happening. When we used to play Star Wars Galaxies, there was this thing where the Empire would just come in and randomly land, right? That doggone Lambda shuttle would come in with a bunch of stormtroopers, and sometimes Darth Vader would be there, and somebody would come running into the cantina and say, hey, the Empire just landed, blah, 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 you know, unexpected, and people would, they jump up and run. I love that type of dynamic stuff that happens in the game, you know. So we know they're trying to work on that with Quanta, where things kind of happen based upon activity and stuff. So I'm looking forward to it.
Anomaly 47, who asks, part of what excites me is the business, manufacturing, distribution possibilities of the game, particularly in and around design of new things like new ships. Will you ever build a ship design/building module into the game where players, if they have the means, can design, manufacture, and try to sell a new ship?
Nope.
Or potentially use them for their own purposes? Yeah, we actually want to figure out a way to get user-generated content into the game. In the persistent universe, we kind of have to curate it because you don't want everybody just designing and building their own crazy wild ships with unbalanced loadouts and all the rest of the stuff. But that was actually one of the core driving factors of the Next Great Starship, which was you know, the competition we're running, and the level of quality in that is pretty astounding, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm actually not enjoying the final stages because I like so many of the ships, and I think all the teams are so talented that it kind of sucks that there's only going to be one winner. So there may be a way we try to find a way to get more of those ships into the game. But I definitely think there should be some way that we can have where people could potentially design ships or even items, maybe to specs that we publish and say we need this and this, you know, kind of like, say the US government says, oh, we need a new aircraft. Well, let's put it out to bid, and they put out to bid, and then Boeing and Lockheed, you know, well, they used to compete, I guess they're all the same now, but do their designs and get them into, you know, and the winning bid makes it and goes into manufacturing and stuff. So potentially, I think definitely that. In terms of actually manufacturing in the universe, I like the idea that you have to go and get the raw resources to make the stuff, or make sure that you're, you know, sourcing, you know, the CPU components from another factory. And so, you know, potentially we'll allow you to sort of acquire, you know, you've got a ship factory, and maybe you can acquire a license to manufacture a certain kind of ship, and then you could be the local provider of that ship, or an NPC manufacturing center would be. So that kind of split, I guess, the difference between people doing user-generated stuff and then actually stuff that you sell in game. But they're both things that we're looking at, and we long-term want to put in the game. Whether it'll be in the game from the very beginning, that's another question, because there's a lot of things for us to do. But that's definitely a long thing. I think the community providing a lot of the content, both just in terms of like adventure and action, and also you know, things in general, is super good for the life of the game. I mean, that's one of the reasons why people still play Freelancer today, even though it came out, you know, over 10 years ago, is because of the modding sides, and that's why we're supporting modding. So we are going to find a way to do that. So we're just going to have to juggle a bit. And of course, on your own, if you're playing, you're modding your own stuff for the play around your own little version of the universe, then you can do whatever you want. Okay, next.
Okay. I stand corrected. He says that they're going to, well, okay, I stand half corrected. Some of you guys were around back in the day when they did the last great Starship. They did several weeks where backers basically submitted their design ideas for ships. I don't remember how many groups there were, but let's just say there were 10. They all submitted a ship design. Then some of the devs from CIG would sit around and talk about what they liked, what they didn't like, and they come back the next time. And it basically whittled down to one ship, that one ship finally being the Redeemer. And as great as those designs were, and they all looked great, I mean, it was really, really cool. There were some ships that were way better to me than even the Redeemer. But there were problems. The ships, that's why Chris says they have to be done to spec, because at that time, the specifications or the models for the different manufacturer ships had not been completely put together yet. So the Redeemer had problems because of its design, because they had, it's got to be able to fit the height of our characters, the width of our characters. If a ship is in the game, it's got to be able to accommodate if NPCs are in the ship. Two people have to be able to pass each other. They're doing a whole redo on the Retaliator just because of that. So a lot of those factors weren't there when they came up with the Redeemer, which is why the Redeemer got tabled for a while, and they had to go back and redo some things to it and redesign it, and it became a different ship. We saw the same thing happen with the Carrack. The Carrack was, as you guys know, this slim, sleek kind of thing, and when we got it got a little chubby. Well, that's because the metrics weren't in place back when the concept artist did it. It was just artwork, and it was all exterior. The interior stuff was there, but they had to go back later when the metrics were right. So now they do have metrics for ships. So they could run another contest. They could run another opportunity to say, hey, if you guys want to submit, we need a new this, we need a new carrier, or we need a new destroyer. They could do that. I think it's great when they do it outside of the game. Inside of the game, I don't know. That's interesting. Now, for people like who have the Crucible, doing repairs and being able to acquire parts and bring things in like that and crafting and manufacture, I get that. But building ships in game, I'm way down the road if it does happen, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, let's see. Flying in and seeing dozens of Vandal ships would be spooky. Yeah, I would like to see another community. Yeah, same here, Chill. I would love to see them do it again too. Last one was a warship. Maybe they could come up with something industrial. Yeah, industrial, transport, touring. Yeah, they could always do that, right? Every couple of years, not every couple of years, but yeah, I give them maybe every 3 years. Put that competition out there, have one of the manufacturers. They can even tie it into lore, right? They could say Anvil is doing a thing, where you have to create a ship for Anvil, for the specific manufacturer. That way people kind of know. And when the guidelines come out, they'll know they'll have to build it based around something like that, which would be pretty cool. What's going on, New Soul? Good to see you.
This question comes from Poltergeist, who asked, docking with other ships using the corral was on my mind. With most of the ships, the standard docking corral is in a funny place. You can't see it from the cockpit. Will the docking sequence be automatic, or will we be able to manually navigate our ships to dock with each other? So I guess the answer would be, you will always, your sort of ship flight computer will always be able to you get close enough, you can auto dock. But like everything, we'll let you try and do it yourself if you want. It probably may not be so easy, but in general, you normally we let you can land. You can sort of auto land, or you can land properly if you want. And we'd say probably do the same for the docking. Although, based on where all the docking collars are, get close enough and say, okay, auto dock would probably be the best way to do it. Okay, next question comes.
Okay, so you guys know we do have auto docking in the game. That was a concern. There are some issues though with landing manually that. Some of you remember back in the day, our scanners on our ships used to actually show in the center. It would show like when you were landing, when you were coming into like the center of a pad, kind of like in Elite Dangerous has that. You come in and you knew where to land and boom, you could touch down without a problem. And then they took that out. And it's proof of concept, right? So it goes away, but it's going to come back. And they've told us they're going to bring it back with the little radar and all that stuff so we can see what's around us. That's going to come back. But it does make it difficult to land. Do precision landing. You can land, but some of us, we have big egos. We want to be able to hit, boom, right on the mark. You can eyeball it. A lot of people fly third person just because they don't have those tools in their ship to be able to land like that. I want those tools because I'm one of those people who loves to stay first person. I don't like to break the immersion of going external unless I just want to catch the view. But I don't want to do that as the means that I have to do in order to land my ship. And I'm sure most of you are pretty much the same thing. So yeah, we do have the auto docking. Now I know on big ships, real problem. The 890, the Hull C, anything that's got to use those docking collars. They do have obviously they have a HUD system that works, right? It takes a little bit to get used to it. And once you get used to it, you say, oh, I get what they're doing and it works. But I wish, there is and somebody tell me if I'm wrong about this, there is a keybind that says docking camera or external camera. I never seem to be able to get it to work because I keep looking for it. But, I'm hoping that CIG does put like some type of camera that when you're coming up to the dock, because there have been times when I've been like so close to the dock, but I'm off by a little and I have to go third person in order to get it right. Or I just have to default and do in, which I hate doing. I like being able to dock because I did it. That makes me feel good when I pull in with a big ship and boom, I dock and yeah, you nailed it, but that's just me. Tonka Toy, SC, good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for that follow. Appreciate that. A docking camera, yeah, like NASA uses. Yep, exactly, socially, exactly. Landing in a vertical hangar is impossible without third person. Yeah, until you're right. And the other thing too is, hey, Glade, even when you're coming into some of those hangars, they're tight, right? If you come in with like a C2, a Carrick, 890, sometimes you are really just a few meters away from the edges, and you need to be able to see. And like anything else, like in real life, when a cruise ship comes in, there are multiple eyes, there are cameras all over looking at when you're bringing in a big ship like that. And to me, you need that same level of flexibility. Your MFDs, you should be able to hit a button. And if you got 4 MFDs or 3 MFDs, whatever, there should be a fore, aft, starboard, and port. There should be 4 cameras there that come on your MFDs. You're the pilot. I don't need to see all that stuff. I don't need to see my radar and all that, my fuel and missiles. I need to be able to see when I'm bringing that ship in. And I really hope those MFDs pop in like that. It would be really, really cool. Hey, Glade. Yeah, thank you, man. Yeah, we're pushing up the numbers there. We raised a good amount this weekend, and we are at, I think, $5,700 total now. So we're 4,300 away. We got 3 weeks to make it happen. Will we make 10 grand? Who knows? But we made more than we kind of figured we were going to make 5 grand. So we're hoping that we can push toward it even more. And we still have plenty of stuff to give away too. So we're still excited about doing St. Jude. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let's see what else we got.
Comes from Slack R, who asks, will ships in the dogfight module come with a manual? If so, will each ship type have a different manual? How similar are control functions across the different ship types? That's a really good question. I actually wasn't thinking about a manual for the dogfight manual, but now you've just given me ideas of claw marks in the old Wing Commander, so maybe we can sort of mark up a little PDF from each one of the manufacturers done up as a, hey, this is your Hornet manual, or this is your Aurora manual. So not promising that, but I may, after this recording session, go out and have a discussion of how easy it will be to do that. But outside that, the general control functions across the ships will be more or less the same. So the interface and like how you fly it with a joystick or a gamepad or a mouse or a keyboard will all be fairly consistent. It's just that some ships will have more functionality than other ships, so you just won't have as much, say, on a more basic ship than on a more advanced ship. But in general, the control functions operate more or less the same, especially on the fighters. So like the flight, the IFCS, all that stuff is similar. The difference is the ships themselves will handle differently depending on the thruster power, depending on their mass, depending on the placement of them, all that kind of stuff, depending on the energy drain, which is affected by also the weapon usage, all the rest. Okay, next.
Interestingly enough, the cockpit layouts on ships, there are certain ships that have like beautiful layouts. And when I say that, the layouts are nice on mostly all the ships. But there are some that are more designed well. I'll tell you one of the ones that's really designed well. And you're going to laugh when I say this, unless you own one. An Aurora. An Aurora has one of the best layouts there is because you can see everything without having to hold down F and look around. You see every MFD there, and you can see out the windows well. It is the greatest view. The Mustang has a good one as well. The Avenger used to. I haven't been in the Avenger recently, but it used to. Everything else, you've got to F and look around. You got to move your mouse, whatever. Except if you have eye tracking. If you have eye tracking, that's the one time it's not a hassle. Because if you've got eye tracking or head tracking, you can just move your head and you can see it without having to deal with the whole manually mechanical thing of moving your mouse and all this other stuff. That is the one time that the HUD layout is not an issue. Now, I don't know if they can make it like the Retaliator. Tough ship. You've got stuff up here. You've got stuff up here. Prospector. You've got stuff here. You've got stuff up here. Even the new Furies. You've got stuff up here and stuff up here. I use a Tobii eye tracker, so I can just lift my eyes up or my head and I can see up there and click on something. But if you don't have something like that, you've got to literally, especially if you're on mouse and keyboard, you've got to do the whole manual thing of tilting up, trying to hit it, and you're not flying your ship anymore at that point. It's kind of a hassle. So I'm hoping that they do come up with a really, 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 really cool layout. Yeah, the Cuddy's good. I agree. The Cuddy's got a good view too. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, the Connie got a pass with a new graphics interface on how their panels are, but everything's not active on it as far as I'm remembering, Glade. But yeah, it does. It's better than it was back in the day. All right.
This question comes from Krasos, who asks, why was the decision made to not have a traditional friends list in Star Citizen and instead go with multiple organizations? Well, so the way we kind of thought it is, basically a friends list is like a flat organization. Chris's friends, right, could be one of my organizations, and I could have a bunch of people in that, and then I could also be a member of some other organizations like, Bounty Hunters Incorporated or whatever, the Merchants Guild, whatever sort of organization I want to get into. And so for us, it just sort of felt like organizations really could be, an organization could be a friends list. It's just a very flat, it's a very flat organization, no boss, everyone's just in it as a group. Or you can have groups, organizations that are more hierarchical, which would be more like a typical organization or a guild. So it sort of felt like doing it this way gets to, do the best of both worlds, so to speak. Okay, next question.
So yep, you guys get that. They do have a friends list in the game, though. You guys do know that you can connect with just your friends if you want to. But I think he's referring basically to the website, because the website was never designed that way. It was only set up for you to come in as an org.
Comes from Sniped Unoob 555, who asks, I'd like to know what your current ideas are for the PlanetSide module. Will we just have the ability to land and explore the planet, or will you have an in-depth interaction with the environment? E.g., if it's a city environment, will there be shops, bars, and such that we could use, or will that be released in the later game stages? Chris Roberts, you demand. All right, thank you very much for that. No, so the PlanetSide module is essentially, we'll be opening up a bunch of the interactions that would happen down on the planet to everyone in the community to play with. So the idea is when you're in your hangar, there's like a door in all the hangars to the outside world, and you could go through that door and you would step out and you would be in a PlanetSide environment. And we may debut with just one, or we may debut with a couple, and you can wander around it. And in the environment, there would be shops where you could buy stuff. You go to a bar where you could talk to people and get, ultimately in the game, that's where you would get, you would look for sort of missions, or you would meet other players in the bar. So the idea of the PlanetSide module is sort of to test out and work on the functionality of all that would happen once you land from space. So you will definitely have the ability to wander around and have some in-depth interaction and do all that. And then, as we go along, we would sort of be adding more functionality and action to it. And then as the persistent universe is rolling out, there'll be more areas to explore. But the PlanetSide stuff's one of our biggest tasks, because there's just a lot of, I think we've got something like 450 different landing locations right now that we're talking about. And then you've got to build all the environments and the content. So we're really working pretty hard on how to do that in a way that matches up to our quality and fidelity, but it won't take 400 years to build. So I think we've got a pretty good solution that sort of uses a combination of unique stuff, some more sort of modular stuff, and we are longer term researching some kind of procedural stuff to help build out and flesh out some environments based on criteria that the economy system feeds in. The PlanetSide module will all be sort of testing grounds for that, and eventually it will just roll into the persistent universe So basically, so the hangars, sort of think of the hangar as the hub, and so the hangar now will get you to the dogfight, it will get you to the planet side, and then ultimately it will get you into the persistent universe. Okay, next.
Because it's 450 landing locations. This is back in May 19, 2014. So I don't know what that number, if that just reflects planetary locations or what, because we were talking about the social module, or whether they're talking about just any place you can land. We're not anywhere near that yet. I don't think we have 450 places. So I would think that maybe he's talking about planetary landing, we'll call landing zones, if you're talking about the entire universe. You know, when we first got into this, and I got in, you know, during when we just had Arena Commander, when the social, what they call the social module came out, the planetary module, it was Area 18. And I didn't know very much about game development and the idea of proof of concepts at that time. I didn't understand why they put that in the game. I mean, I understood it from the sense of giving it to us, but I didn't understand what the implication was. And I think that sometimes there are things that happen in Star Citizen they're the same thing as the social module. They're introduced into the game as a point of proof of concept. They put it in to see how it works, to see if it works, to see how we respond to it, to see what we do with it, to see what doesn't work. Those things come into the game. We have them for a while. Sometimes they stay. Sometimes they literally disappear. Sometimes they go away. Sometimes they come back as something different. Sometimes they just come back more enhanced and polished. But as a part of the development process, those things happen. So for those of you who remember, we used to be in a hangar. That's all we had was the hangar. And there was an elevator in the hangar. And you would go into the elevator, push this button, and then you would come down into what was Area 18. You'd come off this elevator, you'd make a right turn, and then you were in the customs area. And you went from customs, you went through these two doors, then you went into the open area 18 where the ball artwork is spinning. I think on the left was the weapon shop. Yeah, the weapon shop was to the left. To the right was the hospital. Next to that was the TDD. Across from that was G-Lock Bar. And then there was, Kasaba wasn't open yet. It was shuttered. And then you went across a bridge, which is like it is in the game now, but it was smaller. And then that took you over to Astro Armada, where you could buy your ships. And that was all we had. And we thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Other than that, you could just run around dark alleys and stuff like that. That was all proof of concept. That's all that was a testing ground. It was never obviously intended to be Area 18. But in the early days, we didn't know that completely. I think we thought maybe they were going to expand it or build it out. But, you know, when it came back with a lot more stuff. There were some things that weren't there, but over time it builds out. So that's just, you know, how this process of development goes.
Next question comes from Hellomax, who asks, will a player always know who they were killed by? Will you know who placed a bounty on you if a bounty hunter takes you out? So, well, I don't know whether necessarily if someone's hired someone to kill you, whether you would know who that person was. I mean, you know, in the case of a bounty hunter, generally bounty hunters are after you when there's a bounty that's put on your head, and mostly that's in lawful reasons. So I would assume that if you've broken the law and there's a bounty on your head and you can see your list on the most wanted list, then you would kind of know that, okay, the UEE or the authorities did this to me. If it was a private transaction, I'm not so sure. You probably will know who killed you immediately, like who was, you know, what character was flying what ship that took you out. But I'm not sure that you would necessarily know who ultimately caused the contract to be put on you if it was a private individual, just like in real life. Okay, next question.
Okay, again, I'd be really curious to see whether bounties are something where people, you know, kill you or capture you. I think capturing you is going to be, like I said, I think the numbers could flip a little bit, where capture, actually you make more money if you can capture somebody and deliver them into prison. There are going to be bounties that go out on people just because of the UEE, because they have crime stats. So those will be some type of bounty. There'll be NPC bounties. Then there will be contracted bounties where you hire somebody. Maybe somebody stole your goods or just destroyed your base or did something like that, and you decide, I'm going to put a bounty on them. You have so many different ways that can happen in the game.
It comes from AWAX, who asks, could there be a possibility of a weekly or an even daily news show about current events in the verse that includes interactions between players, for instance, pirate raids or organizations declaring war on each other, and NPCs, like Operation Pitchfork, the UEE's Most Wanted, or Alien Race Interactions? What about the possibility of a play-around broadcast like between two space ferns with Wingman, or the Dread Pirate Robert's literal pirate radio? Well, we're definitely actually planning on having a in-fiction news show that you would see like in bars and stuff, and we would let players also sort of watch it, say from the RSI website. And that's actually part of the sort of post-launch content plan in terms of we would actually have people that their job would be to watch the game and see what events were happening, make sure that we capture sort of in-game footage of some of the events, and make news reports from around the world. So like if two big organizations get into a big battle over an asteroid base, that potentially could make frontline news. And that's part of the idea of trying to put in news that we're constructing for the universe, there's a famine in this sector or whatever, as well as player actions, and blend it all into one, into our world, so it feels like the players are just as much part of the world as all our designed NPCs, and they feel like their actions have consequence. And I personally, that's what I want in a game. I think that would greatly increase sort of the immersion into this world, and so we're planning on that, and it will be really great, I think, when it happens. So I'm pretty excited by that. And then the possibility of play-around broadcasts, I wasn't thinking about this, but I think that's actually a really good idea, and it's probably pretty easy for us to sort of provide sort of channels, just like you can on internet radio. So we probably could have like our channels, just like you can in GTA. You can listen to different channels as you wander around, and then maybe we have some player channels that people could have their own streams on, and then you could tell people and you could tune into it. So that could be pretty cool. So I like that idea. So I will see what we can do about that. Not promising again that it's going to be in right away, but I think that's potentially a very, very cool idea. Okay,
we already know that CIG has implemented these monitors everywhere, right? Some of you guys even have monitors on your ship. I mean, some of them obviously are MFDs to deal with the functionality of your ship for engineering purposes and security and all that other stuff. But there are also entertainment things on the ship. I know that the 600 has them. The 890 has them. I don't know if the Carrack has it or not. Yeah, Carrack's got it. Yeah. There are several things that have these areas where information can be broadcast. Then you've got the bars, things like that. You get the big screens in the cities, all these areas where things can be broadcast and we can get information from them. He says, well, there'll be a player base. We get the fact they'll do the in-game stuff, and they're going to say they're going to actually have people that's their job is to report on stuff that's going on in the verse. That ought to be an interesting gig. But the player ran stuff, that's going to be interesting to see, because you got to, got to worry about licensing, and there has to be some type of vetting, and everything, make sure nobody's not going out there crazy doing something. But it would be interesting. We've talked about seeing places like Wally's Bar where DJing takes place by backers. That there's backers that get booked that start to build their own notoriety in the universe. And DJ so and so's coming, and you want to hear them, and they're going to be here this Saturday. We're having our org is throwing a party there. That would be very, very cool stuff to do.
Last question comes from Sture, S-T-U-R-E. Will asteroids and other mineable resources be finite as they would be in real life, or will they regenerate over time? So we were thinking of making the general areas like asteroids and stuff be pretty close to finite. So there'll be a lot of minerals there, but if you mine out a whole asteroid field, then it gets mined out. Potentially we would play with some level of regeneration. I don't know, it's kind of a balancing issue. But in general, we wanted to sort of have finite pools. So if someone gets to an asteroid field and it's got a really rich seam of minerals that are very valuable, they are a limited quantity, and so people would mine them out, and then maybe they would have to go off and find out some other field or yield for that. So that's kind of the plan. The regeneration question is really just about, we're going to be adding new systems, so there will be new places for people to find and explore, and obviously new minerals to harvest. So that probably should handle it. But if we run into a problem where like everything's mined out right away, and we've got nothing for mining, then of course we'd probably start regenerating some elements of it. But I'm hoping we can balance it. So one of our goals is to actually run this sort of full economy simulation or universe simulation with no players, with the sort of meta AI that we've talked about, and with all these kind of sort of big macro elements like, okay, here's a asteroid field and it has this certain kind of minerals, here's a planet that has this sort of stuff that it produces, and then just sort of see how that works, runs, progresses. I will say that it won't be, mining out an asteroid field will not be something that someone can do in an hour, so it will take a long time and a lot of concerted effort from other people. Okay, so that's the end of the 10 questions for this week. I'd like to thank all the backers out there for backing the game, allowing us to make a game at this level. I mean, it's pretty unprecedented. I think we're at 43.7 or whatever million, which I never would have dreamed of, but it's allowing us to have a huge team and all the local. We got one here in LA where I'm talking to you, in Austin, in Manchester, UK, really talented folks working on the game in Montreal and in Denver, Colorado, and up in San Francisco and in Monterrey, Mexico, and a lot, basically, all trying to build this hugely ambitious game for all you to play and for all of us to play in. So thank you so much for backing, and thank you to the subscribers for kicking in extra money to allow me to do this and us to do a lot more of the community stuff. So I will see you next week. Bye.
Okay, we knocked 3 out today. We knocked out 3 of them today. Yeah. For those of you who are into the mining thing, Tony Z did a really good piece couple of years back where he talked about resources in mining, and he showed how they are going to have limited resources in asteroids and planets. Once it gets mined out, it'll come back, but it'll be a little while before it comes back. So that means that once you've exhausted that, what does that do? That forces us to move further out into the system, to go someplace else, so we don't just get too comfortable. And it changes the economy when that happens as well. And then maybe at some point later, it'll come back to an area. We don't know what that'll be, but like in real life, they should, run out of resources in an area. Some areas are already stressed out or at a minimum place. Other places will be bountiful with the amount of stuff that they have. So for those of you who are into mining, that means you got to be paying attention, and you're going to have to be able to move around. That's for sure. Anyway, that's it for this week. We covered all the ground on 10 for the chairman. Let's see. What was I going to say? Really appreciate you guys. Those of you who hung out with us this weekend, I do want to say a special thank you to you who hung out with us on Sunday for our 12-hour live stream for St. Jude Children's Hospital. It was our very first time doing a stream that long. We definitely needed a day or two to recover. Doesn't seem like a lot at first, and I was feeling good at the end of it, but I could tell that it did take a little bit of steam out of me when once I got there. I was definitely tired. So for those of you who hung in with us, we want to say thank you to you guys too. And those of you who've donated so far toward our cause for St. Jude Children's Hospital, thank you all for the sacrifices that you've made. If you haven't done it, we ask you consider to give toward that. We're still working toward our goal. We're at $5,700. We're looking to raise $10,000 by CitizenCon weekend. And we believe that we could do it with your help. If you're unable to give, pass the word around. Let people know that you've got these people that you watch, and they may not be into Star Citizen, but they'll probably into, or at least heard of, St. Jude. And you never know. They will probably give toward St. Jude Children's Hospital, because we all know people who've been infected by cancer, and definitely it's a sad thing when it's kids. So hopefully we can help those kids out and help their families out as well. Let's see who's on today. Our good friend. Let's see. Oh, our buddy is
tree style.
Let's
cave.
do our good friend.
Flying.
Get him to, if I can join his stream here for a second. Let's load up with our good friend Space Tomato. I know you guys know him. He stopped in over the weekend. I was away at the time, but he did come and hang out with us for an hour, and I was sorry that I missed him, because Space Tomato's a great guy. I love when I get to go on his show. But yeah, we are going to do that. Wow, Glade, I didn't know that. Yeah, I bet it did. Well, I'm glad you had good news with that, buddy. I'm glad you had good news with that. Valkyrie, good to see you too. Thank you for stopping by. And thank you. We appreciate that. We really tried to get through it. Tonka, Oldest Scooter here as well. 2013 backer. You played CR's games. Yes, you were around back in the day then. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's why we're doing this Tonka toy. We really, a lot of people have never seen this stuff or they don't know. And sometimes they think things are feature creep. And then you go back and watch these shows and you say, oh, wait a minute. They were talking about this stuff in 2013 and 14. It's just that people just haven't heard it since then, right? Chris puts his vision out there and it hopefully just helps people understand a little bit more. It doesn't always relieve the pain, but at least it does say, okay, I get that's what they want to do, and maybe that's why it's taken so long, you know. So, anyway, thank you guys again for everything that you guys have done. I really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me on this Tuesday. Don't forget, I'll be back. I think I'll be back on Thursday. Last week we didn't get to do it. We're going to do Star Citizen this week. Get to talk about all the crazy stuff that's happened. 3.20, 3.21, Citizen Con's coming up. The freaking new wormhole, all that great stuff. We're going to get to talk about all that stuff on Thursday. So hopefully you guys will be able to join us for that. Don't forget when you get over to see Space Tomato, give him some love. If you're not following him, check him out. Follow him. He's a good guy. And don't forget Soul Talk on Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll be back on Saturday. This Saturday, I think I'm going to be on this Saturday. And then, of course, this Sunday, we're doing a show called on Soul Citizens called Working at Cloud Imperium. So hopefully you guys can join us for that, okay? Take care of yourselves as always. I love you guys. Peace, love, and soul. Have a great week. Stay healthy. See you soon. Ciao.
Is it a roadmap roundup?